Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the On Soccer podcast. Today we have a very, very exciting guest. He played college soccer at the University of Washington, part of one of the greatest teams in MLS history with the Houston Dynamo, won the MLS Cup 2 times, and now he's in the entrepreneurial world with his own company called Sphere, which I'm very excited to talk to you about. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the pod, Michael Chabala. How you doing, Mike?
Let's go.
We finally made it happen,
man. Dude,
Oh
finally
my
made it
goodness.
happen. I read a book called The Third Door. Did you ever read that book? Have you heard of it?
Never heard of it, actually, no.
Cool book. I haven't read it though. But anyways, it's about this guy chasing, some of the most successful guys around the world, which I'm not there yet. But it was just like his persistence of constantly trying to get in front of these guys and make it happen, to get an interview, to have a question. He put together a podcast. Anyways, man, I put you through the ringer though, man. Like, you just were consistent, and I'm so sorry to take it so long to get here, but man, I really admire what you're doing. I'm grateful to be on, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. No, I appreciate you making the time, and definitely very excited to get into it. It's been definitely worth the wait. So very excited to talk. And then, yeah, I guess we can just get straight into it. Before we get into like the nitty gritty of your career and what you're doing outside of soccer now, we sort of like to start with like a soccer origin story for all our guests. So I was reading about your past, how you got started. I saw you got scouted very young by scouts from Austria, I think. So
Yeah.
When did you sort of realize that you had this, talent for soccer, and when did that really become serious? What's the story behind that?
Yeah, I mean, I like the first time I ever played soccer, it was, like everybody else, at like 3 or 4 years old. And I just remember laying out my jersey and being so excited. I'm talking like literally like probably my first memory. And McCardle Mustangs, green and white, and I had this perfect outfit laid down on the ground, like as if I was laying there and just took all my clothes and it was like perfectly placed. I couldn't sleep. Played the next day, and I just will never forget this like burning, crazy obsession that I just couldn't get rid of. And that just kind of, I think with like athleticism, genetics, maybe some good luck, I don't know, but I was better than others. And my parents lied about my birth certificate, so I was playing on a under 11 team at
Oh,
8.
wow.
And yeah, and we traveled down to San Diego for the Surf Cup, which is, one of the biggest tournaments in the country. And at the time, the developmental system for, youth players has changed dramatically over the past decade. But before, it used to be like Olympic development program, and also you'd go to these club tournaments to be identified by scouts. And so there was a scout there from Austria who was watching the game, who went to my coach and was like, "Dude, who's this kid?" And he's like, da da da. He's 8. And they went nuts. They're like, "Wait, he's actually 8?" And of course, like the rest of the world is grooming players at such an early age, right? Like,
Right.
11, it's almost a year past your critical period. You've probably missed the window. So because I was so young, talked to my parents, came up to Fresno, did a private training session. Next thing you know, I'm flying by myself across the world, on a 747. At the time, pre 9/11, in the cockpit. Like just like this cute little boy that's
That's
getting ushered
insane.
around the world. Yeah, to like go and train full time, for on and off 2 years, in Vienna with a first division team. And that really was what like was the catalyst of like my career, and how I got to where I'm at today.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think it's such a crazy experience, especially starting at such a young age, within the state specifically, because there wasn't like, the development academies and stuff we have now then. So that's very interesting to hear. And I'm just wondering, when you were coming up, like, were there like certain like players or just like teams that you sort of looked up to that you tried to model your game after? Like, who were your inspirations before you like, took it seriously?
Yeah, I mean, David Beckham was by far my, idol inspiration. I love
Mm-hmm.
Pele just because the name, and Maradona because those were like
Right.
posters that I probably had, and Beckenbauer, Dennis Bergkamp.
All
But,
good names. Yeah.
soccer wasn't really on TV. There wasn't a place for
Right.
me to go on the internet to go watch stream games. There wasn't, ESPN highlighting. And so you're talking about a time where I didn't really know the global game besides, what I would hear from, the celebrity status of like David Beckham, which is again where I really started to read some books and do any type of research on, the up and coming Messi. But really, it was my first exposure to the game on the global stage was Chelsea versus Celtic in Seattle when I was at the University of Washington. I don't
Oh,
even know who
wow.
Chelsea
Okay.
was. And I actually was training, and the team rolled in to play Celtic a couple days later. And Frank Lampard like pulls up to the weight rack with me. He's like, "Hey, can I lift with you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean,
What?
sure, okay." And so we're doing like squats, man. And I didn't even know who he was. I'm just like, "Yeah, I know this guy's on the team, but I know who he was." And later my coach told me. I got to go watch the practice. Jose Mourinho, Drogba,
Wow.
Terry, the whole squad, man. So anyways, that's how I fell in love with with Chelsea and my affinity for the Blues and stuff. But yeah, that was my first like real experience with like the top level. Beckham was just, I think, just like the darling of soccer for me. I love like
Right.
the on and off the field swag and like his ability. And for me, I've always prided myself more off the field than on the field, as much as I am proud of what I've accomplished.
Absolutely. No, that's a really cool story. So how much does Frank Lampard squat?
I don't even remember, bro. I mean, I was like college. I mean, it was more like that fanboy moment where I knew this guy was
Right.
famous, but I was
That's
light. It was
amazing.
just, yeah, it was cool. It was definitely
Very
cool.
cool experience. No, very cool to hear as well. Yeah, awesome. So, obviously, like, we've talked about like your academy experience, how you sort of started, who you looked up to. When did it become apparent that you were good enough to like get college offers? Like, were you essentially expecting that since your youth, or like what was the transition like there?
So I came back at 10. I got offered a pro contract. My parents never went to college, so they wanted me to go. If I
Right.
would have signed a contract, then I wouldn't have been able to play or eligibility as a student athlete. But I was already like miles ahead of people. I actually think I like digressed when I came back to the States. But fast forward, I mean, I knew when I got back, I was just like in a different place, like emotionally, mentally, physically, technically. Uh, and then obviously, like youth academies weren't around, so it was Olympic development. So I went through the ODP system, which was like district, state, regional, national, right? That leads up to the national team.
Mhm.
So I was actually trying out for 2 years older. It's like Landon Donovan's group. So I was actually playing
Nice.
2 years up, and I didn't make the state team actually. I was playing up, but I didn't make that team. And never forget some of those moments that go against you that really made me drive and work a little bit harder. And it was through those like academy, not academy, excuse me, ODP sequences that I started getting identified as like one of the better players in the country, as I hit my normal age group, and then started going on these like regional national team experiences around the country, which then kind of get identified through the college system of like who's on the youth national team, who's in the bubble of those players. And then I was really fortunate. I had a, a friend's dad. She ran track. His son played soccer, kind of, but he was a lawyer, and he kind of like talked to me and just said, "Hey, like, who's helping you recruit and market?" I just thought like, no, they're going to come to me. And this is I mean, I was like pre-internet, right? But it was like barely in that phase of like early 2000s where it wasn't really, that visible, like marketing yourself. There's no social media. So anyways, this guy really, I mean, helped me out super by printing up a resume and then mailing them out to like the top 50 colleges around the country. And I mean, just started
Wow.
flooding in. Yeah. And it really helped me because I think people saw me from tournaments. And I mean, I went to University of Washington. Coach saw me in Portland playing at a tournament. So I mean, it was fine. But I mean, I had tons of offers from that, which was a huge help too, because even as much as you're a great player, people will find you. But at the same time, even marketing yourself is also equally as important. So yeah, but it was definitely probably the latter of, as far as like once I came back and started going to these like camps and started being identified and people started sending me letters. And the moment I was a senior, Dean Wurzburger, University of Washington coach, flew down, had dinner with my family, offered me a full scholarship, and I was like, I don't even care like where you are, like how good your team is. Like I'm going there. The fact that you flew down here,
Yeah.
like, is everything I needed to know. And yeah, so I mean, I went on a couple of the trips, but then I committed there, and that was kind of the start of like, I'd say like the real chapter of my like ascending career towards like a professional level.
Right. That's awesome. And you bring up, your times in like ODP, like being in like Donovan's age group and stuff like that. Did you get to interact with any other like people who made it big in MLS or US soccer just like throughout your development process? Like anyone that comes to mind?
I mean, yeah, Landon. I mean, I remember watching him play, playing against him, talking,
Wow.
hearing him speak. When I was like a bit younger, Marcus Beasley. I mean, Eddie John. I mean, all these guys. I mean, everybody that I played with
Wow.
was. I mean, the peers, like people that I played with in my career, Clint. I mean, yeah. I mean, anybody and everybody was. I mean, again, like the groups were separated because the way that the national team cycle works, like 2 year cycles. So. Um, I missed a little bit of like that next year up. So I would just
Right.
say, yeah, like a lot of the groups or the guys that I played with, I mean, pretty much like all the better players, like we all played in MLS together. So it was like this little
Wow.
fraternity.
That's very cool. Yeah. So, we take this chapter to University of Washington up in Seattle. First thing that comes to mind for me is that obviously, like when I think of Seattle, I think of the Seattle Sounders. I think of very passionate fans. I feel like there's like a built soccer culture there. Did you notice that at all when you went there? Like, were you aware of like the MLS teams or anything like that? Like, what was the whole soccer scene like when you went?
Yes, I mean the Seattle Sounders weren't an MLS team yet. They were actually
Okay.
still in the USL. Same with like the Portland
Ah,
Timbers. So the Northwest was, rich with culture and a history of the sport, but they just didn't have the actual top level teams yet. So I mean, when I entered the
sure.
league, there was probably, I don't know, man. I would say like maybe 10 teams,
Oh, damn.
11
Okay.
teams, 12. Like I don't know, like 2006. I mean, I could probably look back. It's probably like 13 or 14 to be honest, but I mean, yeah, over the 10 years I was there, like they probably added another 12 teams, and I think they've added another 12 since then. So it wasn't. I mean, the Sounders were obviously very relevant. People were going to the games. They still had a good following. I did a lot of training with them in the off season, and I never like got really engaged with them, but I was always like doing training camps or
Right.
we'd have like off-season workouts and stuff with them. But it didn't really make a huge impact on me when I was at the University of Washington. I think my my time there was, really detailed focus on graduating because I had to do that before I got drafted. And yeah, and I think it was more or less just like the time in the off season before my senior year traveling to different clubs and training with those teams for a week that really helped me, get my contract with Houston and kind of like help me with that next step.
Absolutely, yeah, very cool to hear. And then sort of like on a like less serious note, I was talking like I mentioned before, but I was talking to Justin Miriam a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about what it's like to be specifically like a soccer player on a college campus compared to like other sports and stuff like that. What
Yeah.
was your experience being like a soccer player? Like, what was like the clout related with that? Like, would people recognize you and stuff like that, or what was your experience?
Uh, not as, yeah. I mean, yes is the answer, right?
Sure,
But I don't know. Like, I didn't drink, I didn't party that much. I
right,
mean, I think I went out, but I was pretty much dialed in.
locked in,
But
yeah,
I mean, University of Washington has, I don't know, 20 plus thousand kids running around the campus, so
right,
it's a pretty big community. But I will say, you know, I probably dressed a little bit on the California side, so I was probably a little bit more of a standout. And yeah, I like to play loud. So I think just with like the team and stuff, we had our own fraternity. The athletes obviously get a little bit more
nice.
recognition. So yeah, I think it was definitely a great experience. I mean, I would recommend it for anybody that has the opportunity to play collegiately or has the opportunity to. It's a great thing. Plus like the perks of signing up for classes and making sure that you can accommodate your schedule, so on and so forth. There's a lot of resources that really help you as a student athlete, even if you don't play or not trying to aspire to play the next level. It's definitely a great experience. And they even say, athletes do better in season and when they're in school than out because,
Mm,
you have more to focus on and, you're better with your
interesting.
schedule and you get stuff done. So yeah, I think it's great.
Awesome, very cool. And then, before we move on to like your pro career, getting drafted MLS, all like that, just because like you're very much in the entrepreneurship world right now, you have your own company. I'm
Mhm.
an econ major myself. We talked about this before.
Cool.
You majored in econ in college. What was the
Yeah.
choice behind that? And like, do you feel like that choice really like impacted you today?
Yeah. So, I mean, great question. I started pre med. I took
Oh
my
wow.
first biology class and I saw some blood or something happen, and I just was like, no. And
Not
also, it
today.
was it was so arduous. I mean, it was really
I can
challenging,
imagine.
and kind of screwed myself. I got like a lower grade than I wanted, and I was always making up for it with my GPA. But I realized too, I was there for soccer. I wasn't there for school, and I made that decision
Mhm.
pretty early on that I really wanted to go pro, and that's what I was going to focus on. So it was always about how can I graduate early because the MLS draft is in January, and I need to be in camp on my senior year. So it was all about how can I do summer school? How can I load up the most amount of credits so I can get out of here in three years? And the business school at UW is also wonderful and well recognized. Those credits actually weren't going to match up to what I needed. I tried poli sci, loved it, but I was thinking, man, is this really going to apply like in life? I mean, obviously,
Sure.
I think politics are super important, and I just was like, yeah, I would love to be the president of the United States one day, but I don't really know if I'm gonna get into politics right away. It's like business makes sense. And then econ, I went to my first econ, my macro class, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. Just enjoyed
Awesome.
the idea behind um, the concept. And for me, it was like, okay, this is easy. Enjoyed classes, it came easy, and I just have knocked it out. And your second question about does it help or has it applied to like what I'm currently doing? Yeah, absolutely. I think it's, you know, I mean, it was a long time ago, but it was still helpful. I mean, numbers are always pretty easy for me, but I think on just like more of the I'm gonna say like scale of business and looking at it from like different levels and then how to like put processes in place and look at it more holistically, I think has been really helpful for me.
Awesome. Yeah, that's very cool to hear as well. And awesome to hear about your college experience and like how you got recruited all the way up there and stuff like that. Would definitely like love to talk about like your actual MLS career now. So you
Mhm.
obviously got drafted I think it was 2006 to the Houston Dynamo.
Yeah.
Did you like know that was bound to happen? What were the emotions like on draft day for you? Like what was the behind the scenes of that?
Uh, I mean, look, I wasn't certain. I didn't know I was going to get
Really?
drafted. I was like,
Mm,
I was a great player. The combine at the time is guys picked from around the country. So I got selected from other coaches to be one of the players at the combine. Like your own coach can't recommend you; it has to be other coaches from the conference and stuff. So I got identified. I went to this combine, played really well. My coach at the time sent me to a few teams: Colorado, Salt Lake, San Jose,
mhm.
which then became Houston, and didn't get to do LA. Bottom line is I didn't know I was going to get drafted. Nobody said anything. You weren't like, oh, top 10. At the time, the draft was completely different, but my parents wanted me to go. So I flew to Philadelphia, stayed with a friend, went to the draft all dressed up. People are like,
Wow.
what are you doing here? Like, it was weird. It's like, and I mean, I think I was 44th. Is that the right number? 44th? Am
That
I,
is the right number.
yes,
Yep,
sorry.
yep.
Yeah. And I mean, 44, like 46 or 48. Like I was like one of the last
Yep,
picks.
44. Yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, I'm just sitting there and I'm getting excited. I see some friends that were there get picked, and then it's like second round and third round. I'm like, shit. And I started thinking, like, what if? And I don't actually know if that's true because I think I probably was thinking that, but I was still probably so confident, like I'm gonna get picked, like I'm gonna get picked. And San Jose came up, and then obviously they selected me, and it was really because of that time that I was with them, and then go to find out, like talking to Dominic Kinnear later, and I was there obviously, and then the one of the assistant coach Tim Hanley saw me, said, "Oh, Mike's here," so they go over and like shake my hand. It wasn't anything like the TV scenes that you see, and it's like, "Oh, why are you here?" It's one of those things. And I was like, "Man, thank you so much for the opportunity." He goes, "I picked you." I was like, "Why?" He's like, "Because you're a good player, but you're a better person." He's like, "I know you're not gonna
Wow.
fuck up my locker room." He's
That's
like,
awesome.
I'm looking forward to working with you." And I was like, "Okay, like, all right." I mean, take that as it is. But one of the things my coach told me, Dean Wurzberger, he's like, "Man, be the first one on the field, be the last one off. Always help with the balls and always help with the goals. Like if you
Mm,
do those things, right? Keep your mouth shut, respect the veterans, like you'll be okay." Well, like he's like, just work hard. I was like, okay, that's it. And that's exactly what I did. And I think it's something that, is missed in our culture a little bit now these days. And more importantly for like younger guys with like egos and whatnot. And that was really helpful because Dominic was a very blue collar, hardworking, old school type coach. I think our leagues evolved into like these new progressive like coaches, if you will. And and then anyways, with his mentality of like where the league was transitioning into and where it was before, he was kind of on the middle brink of like what was. So it really helped to like have that mentality to help me get drafted. And then that was the year that Houston got moved to, or San Jose got moved to Houston,
mhm.
which I thought I was going to San Jose, and then I'm in Texas.
Oh my god, that's very funny to hear as well. And like definitely like cool stuff from the coach too, just about like respect and like the type of person you were. Like it's very cool to hear like
Sure.
your character was a big part of that. So if you're a
Yeah.
soccer player and you're reading and you're listening to this, you better be picking up those balls after practice. That's all we're gonna say.
It's
But
true. I mean, I apply that in my like wording for my business now. It's like,
oh
be a
no
good
way.
player, but a better person. Yeah. Well, I mean, literally,
Mm,
like my whole business is a, I would say like a compilation of all my experiences in MLS, and then taking my favorite parts of our locker room and trying to recreate that same energy and atmosphere, and a lot of those like
absolutely.
keywords and principles that I took away from my time there.
Definitely, yeah, and I definitely do want to get into that deeper as well, because like I think the company is very cool. Before we do that, just like talking about like briefly about your time in MLS and what that was like. I read that in your I think in your inaugural season that you led the reserve league in assists. I'm wondering like what was it like transitioning from the reserve league to try to get into like to the starting team? Like what's the like difference in quality, and like how much of a struggle was it for you? What was that journey like?
Yeah, I mean, look, getting drafted is wonderful. At the time,
Right.
there was like this first round curse that like the first rounders like really never panned out. Um, but I mean, really, like the guys that you think aren't going to make it. The ones that you think are don't.
Right.
It was a time in the league where there's less roster spots, right? So it was just super competitive. Um, Fortunately for me, like I mean, the reserve league came around pretty quickly, so it opened up more spots so that I could have like an opportunity to grow. I was around a winning group, right? Our team in 06-07 won back-to-back championships, and I
Yep.
got my PhD in human connection, teamwork,
Oh, whoa. Okay.
leadership, organization. Like that's the way I look at my time as a pro. I mean, obviously I played 1-2 championships, but the things that I learned being a part of a winning team, I mean, not everybody gets to experience that, right? And there's a lot of things I
Mhm.
took away, which again applied to business. But one of the teammates, Craig Weibel, who's now the general manager at, I don't know where he's at. Maybe he's in Seattle still. Well, anyways, he told me, he's like, dude, you're never going to play here. Like, you need to go get on loan and go get games. Otherwise, you're just going
Mm.
to sit here and you're not going to develop and you need to get out of here. He's like, you need
Right.
to go down that hall, go ask Dom to go play, call some teams and get yourself out there. Best thing you did. I mean, and then best thing. And so I went down there. Portland's like, yeah, we'll take them. Like, let's do it. So I went to Portland. I just, but Craig said, train here, play there. Don't ask for money. Just let them pay for flights. And I did
Mhm.
exactly that. So I was great because I got to be in front of Dom. I got to train, but I was getting these games and getting that experience. That significantly helped me to really get up to speed because again, college to pro is night and day. And I mean, I was 21 playing with like 37, 36 year olds, and this is a time where the league was a little bit older. Pat Onstad was 41, I think, at the time, 42. So
Wow.
crazy times, right? Huge
That's
hurdle. It's
wild.
like, you're high school freshman, varsity, think you're the man, you start over at college. You go up to the top at
Yep.
college and like you start all over. And it's like it's a very humbling experience, but one that I was used to. And so I think with like the reserve team and getting that opportunity and having that team, I mean, our reserve team was guys like Stuart Holden, Chris Wondolowski,
Wow.
Kai Kamara. Like,
That's
I
an
mean,
insane room. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, sometimes Brad Davis because he wasn't playing because like it's crazy the guys that were playing on this Kelly Gray. I mean, the list, Craig Weibel. I mean, this
Mm.
list goes on because like our first
Yeah.
team was so good. During college, I rolled my ankle. I'm a right-footed player as I grew up, but then I transitioned to a left-footed player. Rolled my ankle significantly in my junior year. It's like I can't stop, so I just started playing on my left foot and just trained every day with my left foot. I get drafted. My coach goes, "Hey, you're left-footed, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay, yeah, go play left midfield." I was like,
Oh
"Okay."
no.
I've never played left midfield in my entire life, so I just based off of like what was available was behind Brad. There was no backup there. And so I started playing left midfield. And I just literally started following everything Brad did, started learning how to play left
Wow.
mid, and ended up playing left midfield for our reserve team. And then that's how I just like became like the leading like assist and started doing that part of it. And then Kevin Goldthwait was behind Wade, who then left, and there was no left back. Corey Ash comes in, and Dom's like, "Go play left back." I was like, "Done." Go. I'm playing left back now. And then, I basically sat behind Wade for 4 years until he got injured. Same thing. I was in Austin doing some reserve games just to keep fit and get some other minutes. And then I got my shot, man, and that was it.
Wow. No, definitely a really interesting journey. And you bring up a lot of really talented names that were like just in the locker room with you in the reserves leagues as well. So that's really cool to hear about. But in terms of this Houston Dynamo team, this 2006, 2007 back-to-back championship winning team, I
Yeah.
remember when I was in elementary school, like, you know, I was like the only soccer kid in class. Everyone else was like watching everything else, obviously, like it was back in the day.
Nice.
Right. And we
Yeah,
had
of
one
course.
little like when it was like free reading time, we had one soccer book that was in our library. And I would reread it over and over again. And that's when I first found out about
That's
MLS.
awesome.
And
Wow.
the first name that was in there was Brian Ching and that Houston Dynamo team. So that's like one of my
Legend.
he's probably the first MLS like player I ever heard of and the first like memory I have
Wow.
of MLS. So I'm wondering, being on this like team that's like now just like, you know, I guess sort of like legendary when it comes to MLS. Who are some people like obviously I mentioned Brian Ching, but who are some people you looked up to? Like, what was it like being on that squad, and what was that like being on that piece of history like? Because that's a really cool experience.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot of people ask me this question, and I mean, if I was doing a podcast, I'd flip it, and I would just want to know about that locker room.
Right.
Um, well, I mean, Wade Barrett was our captain, but he
Hmm.
barely talked. He was the
Wow. Okay.
quiet leader that led by example. Model pro, fit, could run forever, would never do anything wrong. First one in, last one out. You know, was
Wow.
going to speak up when he needed to, though. But the guy was just going to never let anybody down. I mean, an absolute general when it comes to leading by example. Now, vocal, another story. I mean, Brian Ching was like your, you know, unspoken captain because of
Hmm.
like his name recognition and the power that he brought to the field. Dwayne De Rosario, his
Yep.
ego, attitude, swagger, you know, energy was, you know, not only contagious but just powerful, that like he commanded your respect, you know, in the locker room. And then you just roll into like this second tier cast of like badass mofos, man, like Alejandro
Hmm.
Moreno,
Yeah.
Brian Mullen, Craig Weibel, again, Pat Onstad, uh, Ronald Cerritos. I mean, gosh, dude. I mean, they just like this group, Richard Maroney. I mean, you go Ricardo Clark. I mean, you go to this group, man. It's like Tots and Dominic bring this team together, and at the time they made like zero money. I mean, like 50K, 100K
Hmm.
at the time, and it was just very powerful because of the dynamic that these guys were able to like respect each other in a place that they came together. And I think it's a perfect storm. They were already successful in San Jose, but then moving the team across the country, these guys have wives, they're barely making money, they've got kids, they're taking them out of school, their wives are, you know, having to quit their jobs, starting all
Wow.
over. Then you go into a Robertson Stadium that has rats running across the floor, showers that don't have warm water, javelins that are like, you know, like javelin, like the track team, like practicing on the
Right.
field, you know, these like massive balls flying around. I mean, it's like a war zone, dude. And we're practicing out there. You got people running
Holy
across.
shit.
I mean, dude, like, and it's like this is a pro team. I mean, it was a joke,
Right.
but the guys made a decision and said, you know, there's two options, right? It's like one, we can complain about these circumstances, or we can use it to our advantage. And so
Oh yeah.
that
Yeah.
redheaded stepchild, Phil Anschutz owned our group, LA, Colorado, a bunch of other teams. Him and our founding fathers, if you will, of MLS supported us. And we were always a team that really got the last look. And that really gave us this advantage. And that was
Hmm.
what brought the team together. That's what kept us tight. That's what kept us humble and hardworking, and you know what made us successful. But man, I can't say enough about the locker room. I mean, I could go on and on and on about stories and the dynamic, and you know, just like really what success looks like, because it doesn't mean a full team of, you know, a Chelsea lineup that has the best players in the
Right.
world getting paid the most. It has everything to do with, you know, the respect, the trust, you know, the belief in a common goal, right, and some principles of what it really means to be a championship team. Another good book for you though is Culture Code. If for those that
Culture
are
code.
looking for a book, yeah, those are looking for successful organizations, businesses, teams. The book studies those groups specifically, Navy SEALs to, I don't know, San Antonio Spurs, so on and
Wow.
so forth. But yeah, anyway, so can ramble all day long about the locker room, but the team was fantastic. It was you know one for the books.
Absolutely, man. No, it's just an awesome life experience to have, and definitely a very cool story to tell. I guess you know before we move on from that, you obviously mentioned a lot of just like high quality players and guys that you were with in the locker room. I'm just wondering, just generally in your time through MLS, and whether it's on the Houston Dynamo or on other teams, who are just some like underrated players you think that you just like experienced time with on the pitch that you just don't think get the flowers that they deserve?
Oh man, I mean, well, Chris Wondolowski was one of them. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously he worked himself up to the leading goal scorer in the in the league. I mean,
Yeah. Are they making a
history.
movie
Like
about him?
that's
Is that true? I feel like they
I
are.
don't
No?
know, maybe.
Okay.
I mean,
I thought they were.
I would hope so. I mean, it's
Mhm.
truly remarkable because this guy is a reserve player. He played next to me. He's with the
Mhm.
Houston Dynamo forever. I mean, the guy just yeah, he's just it's amazing, man. I mean, I honestly probably
Awesome.
say like that's the guy for me that
That's a good one.
would probably be the yeah, man. I'm just humble. Call it the gent. What do you call him? Chief, man. Yeah, dude, he's great. Yeah, Diesel, man. He was great. He was the one that probably didn't get it. Trying to think of other guys that were really good that didn't necessarily get the nod. I mean, there's a lot, man. To be honest with you, there's a
Right.
lot of good players. I mean, it's a difference. I mean, the difference of like guys at the top level. I mean, it's so small. It's somebody getting
Right.
the opportunity, somebody taking it, somebody making the play, getting the shot. So yeah, I don't know. I'll go with Chris Wondolowski because
Yeah.
I mean
No,
it's
definitely
probably
a
taking
great
me a while to
answer.
think about by somebody else.
Awesome. Very cool to hear. And then, we've talked a lot about your time in MLS. We've covered your pretty much career, or in soccer at least. I do want to get onto Sphere and what you're doing now because it's very exciting. Before I do, so there was one part of your website that very much resonated with me. And I saw that like while obviously you had some great times in MLS, there was a certain time where you were sort of frustrated with the league, maybe you weren't getting the happiness you desired out of it and stuff like that. I'm just wondering, what about the league or its structure sort of led you to get to this place where you realized that you needed a change, where like soccer professionally wasn't necessarily the path and maybe entrepreneurship or finance was the route to go? Like what sort of led you there?
Yeah, I think it was when I got traded from Portland. I had a poor experience with John Spencer, and it's part of what I missed out on. And I look back at my career is I missed out on the business side of really understanding
Mm,
like soccer is emotional for me. It was passion and and my love. It wasn't a
hmm.
business. And I think that's the difference of a lot of European players because it's about money. It's about like the livelihood, right? Whereas in
Right.
America, I never really took that. I was like, I want to be friends with everybody. Like I want
Mm,
to have a great locker room. I want to have cool experiences. Like I want to be the guy in the city that everybody knows. I wasn't thinking, oh, I want to be fucking rich. Like, I mean,
hmm.
to say that poorly, but I was like, man, I know that I'm not going to make a bunch of money. I know my net worth, my network is going to be my net worth. But, at the time in the league when I was making 17K, it's just completely different. But when I was in Portland, John Spencer was working on his contract when I was in a contract coming off the best year of my life,
Hmm.
2011. And I'm like, I got to strike. I mean, I'm making like 37 grand, like just nothing. Maybe I'm making 40. I don't even know. And other
Hmm.
guys in the league were making like one something. So I was like, hey man, like I'm a starter. I want to get this. So nothing happened. And 6, 7 months later, I get traded to DC.
Hmm.
And I really saw the writing on the wall. Like,
Right.
for whatever it was within me, I just knew this was this wasn't going the direction that I saw it. I started to like feel differently about the league. I'm getting older. Right? I'm like 27, 28, barely getting by. It's like, dude, what am I like? How much longer can I keep doing this? Like, what is this going to look like? And obviously, my uncle in my ear was always saying, like, quit, like, stop while you're ahead. You did it. Like, you're not going to get rich doing this. Like, let's go. Like, let's get you
Hmm.
into some other things. Like,
Mm.
I went to DC. My grandpa passed away, and I turned 30 that year, and that was it for me. I knew it. Like it was. I played average at best. I got released from DC, got an opportunity to come back to Houston to train. Knew I needed a spot or at least one more year to help with the transition, which I got. But that's when I knew. I knew my grandpa died. I think my life and my perspective changed. And then I think with like turning 30, that was actually when I actually stopped playing completely. But it was that like transitional period where I really started to look at the league differently. And you go back like what could the league be, or that earlier part of your question regarding the league and how it's changed. It's just time. I think
Yeah.
that the first founding group of players that barely made any money. 40 grand might have been a lot. Like the first 10 years of the league. I mean, hats off to those guys. Most of them are the ones that stuck around. Hopefully, are in good spots. I think the second group, I think I was on the tail end of that group.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
think is reaping the benefits of front office positions and starting to like get into a league that is more robust and sophisticated with more jobs. Look at Stu Holden, right? Like Darius Barnes. You're just like you're seeing guys like Heath Pierce that are like creating cool businesses within Jimmy Conrad going into like YouTube
Yep,
and being
yep.
so there's just more that's evolved with the game that I think we are in a very great spot, even myself, creating something that doesn't exist around the sport that like I like was needed but just didn't exist there. But I wouldn't have done it if it was already 10 years later. Maybe the money wasn't there, but the opportunities were. And I think that my perspective has changed just based off of being bitter and angry by like
Hmm.
prematurely ending rather than being grateful for the opportunity and the experience of winning and to be able to have that opportunity of still being able to be young enough to go and pursue something like I did. But I think it's definitely a wonderful place where the league is now. But I think looking back at where I finished and where the league is now, it's I wouldn't be doing it if it was flipped or if I played longer.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. And I definitely admire your perseverance just going through those tough times, still like building something after the league. Like it's very admirable. And a lot of athletes, like, definitely very much struggle moving on in life, like after, their professional like sport, whatever it is. But in terms of that, we've covered your time in MLS. We've talked about your college experience. I really want to talk about Sphere because I've got to say, like, I didn't know much about this company until I like looked into you and your career and stuff like that. I wish something like this existed like when I was a kid. Like I think the facilities look so cool, like the aesthetic, like the actual like plans and memberships and whatnot. I guess is this for the people watching, do you want to give like a quick like little description of what Sphere is, how this idea came about, and what like the mission of the company is?
Yeah, I mean, the original idea around the company came from when I finished playing. I went to New York and started trying to like stay in shape and figure out how to, get myself back into the league. And so I was visiting my girlfriend at the time in New York, and this is when boutique fitness really started to explode with Soul
Mm,
Cycle, Barry's Boot Camp, CrossFit was really ramping up, right? An expansion. Yoga was obviously popular, and Pilates and bar classes, rowing concepts, and I was like just enamored with like this whole like world of like these lights down, music up classes and just
right.
it's like this networking nightclub like vibe. And I was like, dude, this is fucking cool. And I was always
Yeah.
complaining in soccer that there wasn't a place where it was like soccer and music and working out.
Yeah.
And I started going through that, and I asked, I was like, is there anything for soccer and fitness? Like, no. Well, you can go play at an indoor soccer facility, which I did. And somebody tried to break my leg, and I was like, never again, and they're
Yeah.
just like underwhelming, dark, boring, just stale old hockey rinks and storage facilities that get manipulated into soccer fields for guys holding on to their careers that they never got to pursue, and it just sucks. And I was like underwhelmed with it, and so I said, man, it would be so cool to create like a concept that is like Soul Cycle. It's like lights down, music up, like really energetic,
Yeah.
but for people that don't necessarily play or haven't played at a high level, where it's just all about connecting, not competing. And that was it. Like I brokered natural gas. I was at a private equity firm. I was at Morgan Stanley. So I was basically moonlighting for 3 years. I didn't even know what I was doing. I just,
Mm,
I had the idea, had a couple of the life experiences happen that really, I don't say forced me, but just moved me to actually get started. And entrepreneurship is a beautiful thing. It's like a game to me.
right.
It's a long season. It's not certain, and I actually look at my athletic career and my entrepreneurial career like very parallel as far
Mm,
as like not guaranteed a pro contract, not guaranteed two championships, not guaranteed a
mm,
9+ year career. But what I am guaranteed is tomorrow or today and this moment and being able to control what I can control and use my resources of what I have towards like looking for this goal of what I'm trying to accomplish. And so the three things that really jump out to me of why I started my company, and number one is that there was nothing for soccer and fitness in that
mm-hmm,
space. Two, nobody helped me retire. Like nobody helped me when I
right.
needed it. Like when I was living on a couch, broke, alcoholic, struggling, there was not MLS or the Dynamo, or the Dynamo offered me like 15, 17K to like sell Dynamo tickets, but I was like, fuck off. But
No
it was
way.
more or
Yeah.
less around like, yeah, it was insulting. Um, and it was like, man, like I and the last month at least I was like I wanted to recreate a locker room. Like I wanted to feel that locker room, that human connection piece of like allowing people to like come together. And I feel like those were like the big driving factors for me to like say, I want to create something that I wanted because I missed the locker room. All my friends were still playing. I didn't have any friends. So I was going to other
Mm,
concepts to meet people, and everybody's on their phone or like you're standing next to somebody and like they won't even introduce themselves or you won't even say hello. It's like, oh,
Mm.
you're weird. Like, why are you talking? So I just felt like our world was so disconnected. And this is pre-pandemic that I'm
Yeah,
having these feelings.
that's crazy.
And that was, a world that I came from that was when you got in the locker room, no cell phones. Like that was
Hmm.
it. Like there was no cell phones. The first thing that you do is you greeted every single person in the locker room before you took your seat. And then you took care of yourself and got yourself going. So for me,
Mm.
like that's a locker room, like that's a team. Like Soul Cycle
Right.
preaches a tribe. Like, no, bro, like I don't know what tribe like group that's about, but like you're trying to talk about like a locker room or a team. Don't tell me a yoga studio is because like everybody would be like talking to each other. I mean, it's a very wonderful thing, and each one of these concepts are beautiful in their own design. But what I
Right.
was going after wasn't soccer fitness. Like I was going after human connection and a team
Wow.
concept of helping people come together. And that's over several years of business, of going through a pandemic, doing the indoor stuff, bumping my head against the wall, realizing that's not working, going outside, evolving. And at the end of the day, what Sphere is today is a team that's playing to connect the world through game changing workouts, atmospheres, and experiences. And so within our vertical of our business, I always wanted to create that indoor studio. So we have two now, one in Houston, one in Austin.
Nice.
And Austin is a hybrid outdoor, but I've created these really great classes around the game. So like at our facilities, they're pink pentagons on our map, but those are like the best workouts that you'll ever find that are soccer inspired.
Right.
Fitness, there you go. And yeah, it's they're freaking amazing. But they're a soccer facility at the end of the day with a mixture of a boutique fitness concept. So just super unique and super cool. And then we have this idea of people wanting to start our business in parks and take it with them like in different areas of like the
Oh,
city.
that's
And
interesting.
yeah, so during the pandemic, we went outside and we started doing these like outdoor workouts. And I mean, long story short, man, we started building these communities in different cities, but it was much different than what the indoor facility was. So I called it club. So that's why it's like
Mm.
sphere.club. Like sphere is our
Right.
facility and clubs are these groups of people that are using our brand to help people come together
Ah,
and just
okay.
and just utilizing our workouts, our style of play, to help people come together. And so, going back to like what the business was always about, it was about creating a locker room. It was
Right.
about recreating the locker room for me with the Dynamo, but it was about creating a locker room to like have those core principles that I learned from the Dynamo for people to actually come together and feel like they're part of a team. And again, for all intents and purposes of being in a corporate environment, working at these different shops, like being a part of different groups and going to different concepts, it just really felt like it was really hard to meet a guy friend. Like it was really hard for me to just, I don't say meet a girl because there's a bunch of dating apps now, but I was like, man, I want to find a girlfriend. Like how am I gonna go find places that are
Right.
like-minded that I can go find somebody? And it's just not everybody has the confidence to go up to that girl, or not everybody has the confidence like even go ask a bunch of guys like, hey, can I grab a beer with you guys? Like, what's up? It's like weird.
Right.
So that was the real catalyst for me with the concept of luck, and also just I think personal like necessity and need of like wanting to solve my own problem of
Mhm.
really wanting to like make friends and find a way to actually like interact and help people meet. So yeah, it's been super unique, man, in the concept because I think for us even is like figuring out who we are because all along it's been soccer inspired, but I've like removed soccer inspired from pretty much all of what we're doing. And as we continue to keep moving, like we're taking soccer almost out of it and moving towards a
Right.
place where it's about connection.
Dude, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like everything you hear, like or I hear, like about the company, like the way you've been talking about it, even just the social media, like the way the gym looks, the way the exercises and stuff like that. Like this is definitely something I think that just like is gonna absolutely take off. So huge kudos to you for even like coming up with this concept. And like I love the way how you brand it, like based like, it's based on like connection. You know what I mean? Like I do agree with you that if you like go to work out or something like that, like it's just impossible to really meet people that way, or it was at least in the modern day. But stuff like this, really cool to hear. So definitely very excited to see what happens with that in the future. What's like the like I know you said that there's like facilities in like Houston and Austin right now. What's like
Yeah.
the near future plans? Like what are you trying to like? What you have any specific goals in terms of like growth for the company this year? Like what are you thinking?
Yeah. So the idea would be similar to a like an MLS city. There's a
Right.
stadium, and that stadium is our location. that
Ah,
like has a pink pentagon, and then you have like club teams playing all the way around it. So, the whole idea for us is to really help Austin and Houston get density around the city, and major suburbs, and within the
and I'm sure
communities.
they're
So that
buzzing
way,
right now just with soccer clubs there too. Like especially with Austin FC, like falling there is huge. So
uh,
that's an awesome place to do
yeah,
it.
yeah. So the big thing for us is partnerships with MLS. We're doing a lot of video content with like towards Apple Plus.
Nice.
The big piece is like really figuring out ourselves at the facility side of things so that we could replicate that, and then to evolve more into a social concept and community concept rather than soccer in the club space for these other
Right.
cities. So that way, when somebody gets started, they're not just solely, focusing on soccer, where they throw in like a volleyball, or there's like a pickleball day, or there's
Mm,
a run club, or there's like our happy hour. Because like everything about our team and the way we go is, I'm the head coach. I put out the season schedule when we're doing our ski trip, when we're doing like these MLS experiences. We do an international trip, and then people from all over the country are like, "Oh, I want to go to that. Oh, I want to go to that," or like, "Oh, I want to go to this city. I want to go experience that." So it's like we're creating this network for people to be able to like feel like they can go to another city with their membership and go plug in, where everybody's going to be shaking their hand, everybody's going to be teammates, friends, like immediately, and they can have this cool experience. And then from us as a business is to be able to like show what those experiences look like. And I feel like the big piece for me this season is replacing myself, because I'm better as a creator in like a different
mm,
position, not like a manager operator. I think
sure.
it's hard to get that knowledge in school. I wish I would have took entrepreneurship in college.
Mm,
That would have been the best. But what I have learned is, just like a soccer player growing up, you have to be really honest with yourself, and constantly evaluating others, but also you, right? Like, what am I good at? What am I bad at? Let me stay away from what I'm bad at, focus on what I'm good at, and then what are the things that I can actually improve on and work towards. And some things, and part of like entrepreneurship is also saying, it's cool going alone and building something because you can do your own thing and go fast. But if you want to go far, you got to think like a coach. I mean, you've got to be able to put a team of people together that are going to work together, and then be able to actually implement them into a strategy and focus on a goal that, you're creating, and slowly back yourself out, of every position that you're playing, and it's just
hmm
tough because not at once you have millions of dollars where you could just go hire all the best
Right.
people and it's like, hey, go. You might get like, a little bit of money at a time, and it's like slowly but surely like making sure you get the right person in that has the right fit, and slowly back yourself out, add support, and then go again. But yeah, man, it's a fascinating experience. But yeah,
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, I would recommend it to anybody that is ever interested.
Absolutely, man. Well, from your, academy days in your youth to college to MLS to now this, you've had a hell of a journey and it's been a really cool time, like, recapping it, talking about the intricacies of it, like lots of really cool stories. So I really do appreciate it. But for every one of our episodes, we end with something called the back four quiz. So what I have
Okay.
essentially is just like four questions that sort of relate to your career, your life, and like, we'll see how many of them you can get, and then we'll end after that. So
All right, sounds good. Let's do it.
all right, awesome. All right, so let's start with number one. We'll throw it back to your college days here. The University of Washington has a mascot that's a husky. Do you remember the name of that husky?
Wow. Great one, bro. Um, I don't. Pete, I don't know. I'm just making one up. What is it?
It is Harry the Husky.
Oh, Harry. Okay, yeah, yeah. God, I didn't know that one. Good. Okay, good. I like it. Keep going.
For sure, for sure. Okay, bet. All right. Second question. I think this one may be a bit harder, so we'll give you like a margin of error of like 2 or 3 for this one. But
Okay.
with how many assists did you lead the MLS Reserve Division?
I want to say like 14.
14. That's within the margin of error. Answer is 12.
Okay,
Good
wow. Okay.
stuff. Good stuff. All right.
It was probably more. They miscounted. I'm just joking.
Probably Wikipedia is probably wrong. Actually, yeah, you're right. I'll edit that for you. But okay, yeah, 1 for 2. Two more. Let's see how you go. So, this one, the reason I'm asking actually is because the answer to this question is my lucky number. So we'll give you
Okay.
another margin of error of like 5 for this one. But how many total appearances did you have for the Houston Dynamo?
Oh man, I want to say
And just to clarify, from like 2006, 2011, like your first like 5 year stint there.
oh, okay. Probably 46. I don't know how many.
Ooh, 47. You were right there. Okay. Well done. Well done.
Wow.
Right
All
within the
right.
margin of
Nice.
error. Yeah. 47
So
appearances
funny.
from 2006 2011. Yep. Okay. Perfect.
Wow.
So 2 for 3. You're bouncing back really well. Last
All
question. We'll
right.
see if we can end on a high note or not. But for
Okay.
this one, we'll go with so actually this question was originally going to be where did the Houston Dynamo move from? But you already mentioned that you knew it was San Jose, so we'll do a different one. Instead, we'll do so your full professional debut for the Houston Dynamo. Do you remember who that was against? It was a
Oh, it
third
was against
round
the.
US Open Cup game.
Oh, was it against the Red Bulls?
It was Charleston Battery.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say Charleston too. I was thinking my first red card was against, or my red card was against the Red Bull. But yeah, okay, yeah,
There we
Charleston
go.
Battery. That makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
Funny to
Okay,
hear.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, some of those are very hard. So 2 for 4, nothing to be ashamed of at all. Really good
That's
performance
awesome, man.
there.
What a great way to end, dude. I love it, man.
Absolutely.
All right, dude. I love it, man. Thanks for having me on, man. This was fantastic. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. I really appreciate the time you made. Love learning about your career as well as the company. I'm really excited to see where this thing goes, man. So definitely going to stay in touch and all the best for the future, man. Really appreciate it.
Sounds good, man. Keep the ball rolling, okay? I appreciate what you're doing, man. And I'll
I'll
look
see you,
forward
man.
to kicking you on the field soon.
You as well. See ya.
All right, see you, brother.